Pack your things. You have 1 hour, then you're leaving this house." Richard Sullivan dropped the suitcase at his 15-year-old daughter's feet. His eyes were cold as stone. His pregnant daughter stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her face, waiting for her mother to say something. Anything. But Margaret Sullivan just stood at the kitchen window, her back turned, refusing to look at the child she was about to lose forever. "Mom!" Emma screamed. "Mom, please, look at me. I'm your daughter." Margaret's shoulders shook. Her knuckles turned white against the counter. But she did not turn around. She did not speak. She did not say goodbye. That was 15 years ago. Now Emma Sullivan is back. She expected anger. She expected a slammed door. What she found instead made her blood run cold. Before we begin this incredible journey, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and follow Emma's story until the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story has traveled. Now let us go back to where it all began. Emma Sullivan had never broken a rule in her life. At 15 years old, she was the kind of daughter every parent dreamed of having. She made her bed without being asked. She finished her homework before dinner. She said yes, ma'am, and no, sir, like it was second nature. When her curfew was 10 o'clock, she walked through the door at 9:45. Her father, Richard Sullivan, expected nothing less. Richard was a senior accountant at the biggest firm in Willow Creek, Oregon. He wore pressed suits and polished shoes and carried himself like a man who had never made a mistake in his life. In the Sullivan household, his word was law. When Richard made a decision, you did not question it. When Richard gave an order, you followed it. That was simply how things worked. "Discipline builds character," he always said. And character is everything. Emma's mother, Margaret, was cut from the same cloth. She ironed tablecloths that nobody would ever see. She wore pearls to the grocery store. She ran the PTA with an iron fist and organized church bake sales that the whole town talked about for weeks. But more than anything, Margaret Sullivan cared about appearances. What the neighbors thought, what the town whispered, how the family was perceived. These were the things that kept her up at night. These were the things she built her entire identity around. "People are always watching," Margaret would tell Emma. "Always judging. You must never give them a reason to talk." And for 15 years, Emma had given them nothing. The Sullivans were the perfect family on Maple Street, the house everyone admired, the marriage everyone envied, the daughter everyone wished they had. But perfection is a fragile thing. And that summer it shattered into a million pieces. His name was Brandon Mitchell. Emma first saw him on a Tuesday afternoon in June. School had just ended for the summer, and she was working her usual shift at the ice cream shop on Main Street. The bell above the door chimed, and Emma looked up to see a beat-up Ford truck pulling into the parking lot. The driver stepped out, and Emma forgot how to breathe. He was tall, dark hair falling across his forehead, a crooked smile that made something flutter in her chest. He walked into the shop like he owned it, like the whole world belonged to him, and he was just letting everyone else live in it. "What can I get you?" Emma managed to ask. He leaned against the counter and looked at her. Really looked at her, like she was the only person in the room. "Chocolate milkshake," he said. "And your name?" "Emma." "Emma." He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. Pretty name for a pretty girl. She felt her cheeks burn. "That'll be $3.50. He paid with exact change, took his milkshake, and sat down in the corner booth. He stayed there until her shift ended at 5, watching her work with those dark eyes that made her feel seen in a way she never had before. He came back the next day, and the day after that, and every day that week. On Friday, he was waiting by her car when she got off work. "I'm Brandon," he said, like she didn't already know. Everyone in Willow Creek knew Brandon Mitchell, senior, varsity baseball captain, the boy every girl wanted and every guy wanted to be. "I know who you are," Emma said. "Good." He smiled that crooked smile. "Then you know I don't usually do this." "Do what?" "Wait around for girls." He stepped closer. But you're different, Emma. I knew it the moment I saw you. You're special. Nobody had ever called Emma special before. Nobody had ever looked at her the way Brandon was looking at her now. Like she was something precious, something worth waiting for. "I'm only 15, she heard herself say. "So, what age is just a number?" He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "What matters is how we feel. And I feel something with you, Emma. Don't you feel it too?" She did. God help her, she did. They started meeting in secret. Brandon said it was better that way. He said he didn't want people talking, didn't want rumors spreading, didn't want to cause problems for Emma with her strict parents. They wouldn't understand, he told her. People like them never do. They'd try to keep us apart. "You think so?" "I know so." He pulled her close. "That's why this has to be our secret. Just you and me against the world." "Okay." "Okay," Emma whispered. At the time, she thought it was romantic. She thought Brandon was protecting her. She thought his secrecy meant he cared. She was wrong. But at 15, Emma didn't see the warning signs. She didn't notice how Brandon never wanted to be seen with her in public. She didn't notice how he got angry when she mentioned talking to other boys, even boys she'd known since kindergarten. She didn't notice how he'd shower her with attention one moment and go completely cold the next, leaving her desperate and confused and willing to do anything to get that warmth back. All Emma saw was a boy who loved her. All Emma heard were the promises he whispered in her ear. "We're going to be together forever," he told her. "You and me. Once you graduate, we'll get out of this town. We'll go somewhere nobody knows us. We'll start fresh. You promise?" "I promise." He kissed her forehead. "I'll never leave you, Emma. Never." It happened in late July. They were parked by Miller's Pond, the spot where teenagers went when they wanted privacy. The stars were bright. The night was warm. Brandon had brought a blanket and spread it out in the bed of his truck. "I love you," he said. "You know that, right? I love you too." "Then trust me." He pulled her close. "Nothing bad is going to happen. I'll take care of you. I'll always take care of you." Emma trusted him. That was her mistake. 2 weeks later, Brandon Mitchell disappeared from her life. His truck stopped showing up at the ice cream shop. His phone went straight to voicemail. His texts went unanswered for hours, then days. Emma called him over and over, leaving messages that grew more desperate with each passing day. "Brandon, it's me. Please call me back." "Did I do something wrong? Please just tell me what I did." "I'm scared. I need to talk to you. Please." Nothing. She rode her bike past his house, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. She asked around, trying to find out where he'd been. She lay awake at night staring at her phone, willing it to ring. It never did. The truth found her on the first day of August. Emma was volunteering at the town library, shelving books in the biography section, when the front door opened. She looked up automatically. And her heart stopped. Brandon walked in. He was laughing at something, his arm around a blonde girl Emma recognized from the senior class photos. Her name was Stephanie. She was wearing Brandon's varsity jacket, even though it was 80 degrees outside. Brandon saw Emma. Their eyes met across the library. For 1 second, just 1 second, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or annoyance, or maybe nothing at all. Maybe she'd imagined it. Then he leaned down and whispered something in Stephanie's ear. She giggled. He smiled. And they walked toward the back of the library together, hand in hand, like Emma wasn't even there, like she was invisible, like she had never existed at all. Emma stood frozen among the biographies, a book clutched in her hands, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what she had just seen. She made it to the bathroom before she threw up. She made it home before she started crying. She cried all night, her face buried in her pillow, so her parents wouldn't hear. She told herself it was over. She told herself she had learned her lesson. She told herself she would be smarter next time, stronger next time, that she would never let anyone hurt her like this again. But the universe wasn't finished with Emma Sullivan, not even close. 3 weeks later, Emma woke up sick. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up. She figured it was food poisoning, maybe that leftover Chinese food. She drank some water and went back to bed. But it happened again the next morning, and the morning after that. By the end of the week, her mother noticed. "You look pale," Margaret said at breakfast. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," Emma lied. "Just tired." But she wasn't fine. And as she sat at the breakfast table trying to choke down a piece of toast that tasted like cardboard, Emma realized something that made her blood run cold. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had her period. She bought a pregnancy test at a pharmacy 2 towns over, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses like a criminal. She hid the test in her backpack for 3 days, too terrified to use it, too terrified not to. On the 3rd night, she finally found the courage. She locked herself in the bathroom. She followed the instructions with shaking hands. She set the test on the counter and watched the seconds tick by on her phone. 2 minutes, the longest 2 minutes of her life. When she finally looked, she saw 2 pink lines. Emma sat on the bathroom floor for an hour. She stared at those 2 lines until her vision blurred. She prayed for them to disappear. She prayed to wake up from this nightmare. She prayed for God to rewind time and give her a second chance. But the lines didn't disappear, and Emma didn't wake up. She was 17 weeks pregnant before she told anyone. 17 weeks of hiding. 17 weeks of baggy clothes and excuses and fear so constant it became a part of her. 17 weeks of throwing up in bathroom stalls and crying herself to sleep and wondering how much longer she could keep this secret. But secrets have a way of coming out. It was a Saturday night in September. The leaves were starting to change. There was a chill in the air that whispered of autumn, of endings, of things that could never go back to the way they were. Emma found her parents in the living room. Her father was watching his crime shows. Her mother was reading a magazine. The grandfather clock in the hallway was ticking each second, feeling like a countdown to something terrible. "Mom, Dad." Emma's voice came out strange, thin. "I need to talk to you." Her mother looked up first. Her eyes narrowed. "What is it, Emma?" Emma's throat closed. The words wouldn't come. She tried again. "I made a mistake. A really bad mistake. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I need help." Richard muted the television. He turned to face his daughter with an expression that made her stomach clench. "What kind of mistake?" "I was seeing someone. A boy. And we—" "Spit it out, Emma." Richard's voice was sharp, impatient. "I'm pregnant." The word fell into the room like a bomb. For 7 seconds nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was the grandfather clock ticking away the final moments of the life Emma had known. Then her mother's magazine hit the floor. "What did you just say?" "I'm pregnant," Emma whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't." "Who?" Richard's voice was deadly calm, the calm before a storm. "Who is the father?" "Brandon Mitchell." "The Mitchell boy!" Margaret's voice rose to a shriek. "The senior Richard. I told you she was spending too much time out of this house. I told you we should have been stricter." "How far along?" Richard asked. 17 weeks. 17 weeks. He repeated the words slowly. "You've been hiding this for 17 weeks. I was scared. I didn't know what to—" "You didn't know what—" Richard stood up from his chair. At 6'2", he towered over his daughter. "You didn't know how to tell the truth. You didn't know how to keep your legs closed." "Richard." Margaret gasped. "Don't." He held up his hand. "Don't you dare defend her. 17 weeks, Margaret. Our daughter has been lying to us for 17 weeks. "I wasn't lying," Emma sobbed. "I was scared. I was so scared. Brandon won't talk to me. He won't return my calls. I don't know what to do. Please, Daddy. Please help me. She hadn't called him Daddy since she was 8 years old. It didn't matter. Richard Sullivan looked at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. Like she was a stranger who had wandered into his house. Like she was something he'd found on the bottom of his shoe. Do you have any idea what you've done? His voice was low now, controlled. Somehow that was worse than the yelling. Do you have any idea what people will say? What this will do to our reputation, to this family? I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. He slammed his hand on the table. Emma flinched. Sorry doesn't make you unpregnant. Sorry doesn't undo the damage you've done. What do you want me to do? Emma was begging now. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll go away. I'll give the baby up. I'll do anything. Just please, please don't hate me. Richard stared at her for a long moment. Then he walked out of the room. Emma turned to her mother. Mom, please. Talk to him. Make him understand. I made a mistake, but I'm still your daughter. I'm still your little girl. Please. Margaret's face was pale. Her hands were shaking. For one moment, just one moment, Emma saw something in her mother's eyes that looked like love. That looked like the mother who had braided her hair and kissed her goodnight and told her she was the best thing that had ever happened to them. Then the moment passed, and Margaret's face closed like a door slamming shut. You should have thought about that before you threw your life away. When Richard came back into the room, he was carrying Emma's suitcase. He dropped it at her feet. Pack your things. Emma stared at the suitcase, then at her father, then at the suitcase again. What? You have 1 hour. Take what you need. Then you're leaving this house. Dad, no. Please, you can't be serious. Do I look like I'm joking? Richard? Margaret stood up from the couch. Her voice was barely a whisper. She's 15 years old. She's our daughter. She stopped being my daughter the moment she decided to whore around with that Mitchell boy. The word hit Emma like a physical blow. I didn't. She couldn't even finish the sentence. The tears were coming too fast now, choking her. 1 hour, Richard repeated. And then I want you out of my house. Where am I supposed to go? Emma fell to her knees. She grabbed her father's hand. He yanked it away like she'd burned him. I don't have anywhere. I don't have anyone. Please, Dad, please, I'll do anything. You should have thought about that before. I'm your daughter, Emma screamed. I'm your only child. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Doesn't 16 years of being a good daughter count for something? Richard looked down at her. His face was stone. His eyes were ice. No, he said. It doesn't. Emma turned to her mother. Margaret was standing at the kitchen window now. Her back was turned. Her shoulders were shaking slightly. But she didn't move. She didn't speak. She didn't turn around. Mom, Emma screamed. Mom, look at me. Please, don't let him do this. You're my mother. You're supposed to protect me. Margaret's hands gripped the counter. Her knuckles turned white. But she didn't turn around. Please, Emma sobbed. Please, Mom. Just look at me. Just say something. Anything. Please. Nothing. Emma stared at her mother's back, at the rigid line of her shoulders, at the way she stood there, frozen silent, letting this happen. And in that moment, something inside Emma broke. Not just her heart, something deeper, something that could never be fixed. She packed her things in a daze. She moved through her bedroom like a ghost, grabbing whatever her hands touched. Clothes, a few books, the stuffed bear she'd had since she was 5. A photo of her and her best friend Sarah from summer camp. Her whole life. 15 years of memories, shoved into one suitcase. When she came back downstairs, her father was standing by the front door with his arms crossed. Her mother was still at the window, still with her back turned. Dad? Emma's voice was hoarse from crying. Please, one more chance. Just give me one more chance. Richard opened the front door. The night air rushed in, cold and dark and full of things Emma didn't want to think about. "Good luck, Emma," he said. His voice was flat, empty, like he was saying goodbye to a stranger. Emma stepped onto the porch. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and she heard the lock turn. She stood there for a long time staring at the closed door. The porch light flickered above her. The street was empty. The windows of the neighbors' houses glowed with warm golden light. Inside those houses, families were together, eating dinner, watching television, being normal. And Emma was outside, alone, pregnant, 15 years old, with nowhere to go. She walked to the park at the end of Maple Street, the same park where she'd played as a child, the same swings her father had pushed her on when she was 4 years old. She sat down on a bench near the old oak tree, and she waited. Every time headlights appeared at the edge of the park, Emma's heart would leap. She would strain her eyes, trying to see if it was her mother's car, trying to see if someone had come to bring her home. "Mom," she whispered into the darkness. Please come get me." But the headlights always passed by. Nobody stopped. Nobody came. At midnight, Emma was still waiting. At 2 in the morning, she heard footsteps. She sat up quickly, heart pounding. "Mom," she called out. "Mom, is that you?" A homeless man shuffled past pushing a shopping cart full of bottles. He didn't even glance at her. Emma watched him go. Then she curled up on the bench, pulled her jacket around her shoulders, and cried until she had no tears left. When the sun came up, Emma understood. Her mother was not coming. Nobody was coming. The life she had known was over. The family she had loved was gone. The girl she had been, the good daughter, the easy child, the one who never broke the rules, that girl was dead. And whoever Emma was going to become, she would have to become on her own. She picked up her suitcase. She started walking. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know how she was going to survive. She didn't know what the next hour would bring, let alone the next day, or the next week, or the next 15 years. But with every step she took away from Maple Street, Emma felt something changing inside her. A door was closing. A wall was going up. A part of her that had been soft and trusting and naive was hardening into something else, something that would keep her alive. The first 3 days were hell. Emma walked until her feet blistered and bled. She slept in alleys and behind dumpsters. She ate whatever she could find, whatever she could afford with the $47 in her pocket. On the second day, a man at a gas station looked at her belly and said, "You in trouble, sweetheart. I can help you out." Something in his eyes made Emma's skin crawl. "No, thank you," she said, and walked away as fast as she could. She learned quickly that the world was not kind to girls like her. Pregnant, homeless, alone. She was invisible to some people and prey to others. She learned to trust no one. She learned to sleep with one eye open. She learned that the people who were supposed to love you could throw you away, and the strangers who offered help often wanted something in return. On the third day, she found herself at the public library. She wasn't there to read. She was too exhausted, too hungry, too scared. She was there because it was warm and dry and nobody would kick her out. She found a chair in the corner. She put her head down on the table. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was a woman sitting across from her. The woman was in her 50s. Gray-streaked hair in a bun. Kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She was holding 2 paper cups. "Hot chocolate," she said, pushing one toward Emma. "You look like you could use it." Emma stared at her. "Who are you?" "My name is Gloria Martinez. I work at a place called Hope House. It's a shelter for young people who need help." "I don't need help." Gloria smiled gently. "Sweetheart, you've been sleeping on a library table. You're pregnant, and you haven't eaten a real meal in days." She pushed the cup closer. "It's okay to need help. That's why I'm here." "Why do you care?" Emma's voice cracked. "You don't even know me." "I don't have to know you to care about you." Gloria's voice was soft, patient. Everyone deserves someone who cares. Right now, that someone is me." Something inside Emma shattered. She didn't mean to cry. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry anymore. But the tears came anyway, and once they started, she couldn't stop them. She told Gloria everything. Brandon, the pregnancy, her father's face, her mother's silence, the suitcase, the park bench. 3 days of walking and hiding and trying to survive on nothing. When she was finished, she waited for Gloria to shake her head, to walk away, to decide Emma was too broken to save. Instead, Gloria reached across the table and took her hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe," she said. "We'll figure out the rest from there." Hope House became Emma's home. It wasn't much. Cinder block walls, fluorescent lights, second-hand furniture and peeling paint. But it had beds with clean sheets. It had hot meals 3 times a day. It had counselors who didn't judge, who just helped. And it had other girls like Emma. Maria, 17, who had fled an abusive stepfather. Jade, 16, kicked out for being gay. Destiny, 14, aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. They all had their stories. They all had their scars. And somehow knowing she wasn't alone made Emma feel like maybe, just maybe, she could survive this. She got her GED. She got a job at a laundromat. She saved every penny she could. And on February 14th, Valentine's Day, she gave birth to a daughter. They placed the baby in Emma's arms, and everything changed. This tiny, perfect, screaming creature with dark hair and the loudest lungs Emma had ever heard. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a whole life waiting to be lived. "I'm going to give you everything," Emma whispered. "I don't know how yet, but I promise you, I'm going to give you everything I never had." She named her Olivia. And for the next 15 years, Emma kept her promise. She worked 3 jobs, mornings at the laundromat, afternoons at a diner, nights cleaning offices with Olivia sleeping in a car seat beside her. She slept 4 hours a night. She lived on coffee and determination. She took night classes and studied for her nursing degree in whatever stolen moments she could find. It took 6 years to become a nurse, 6 years of sacrifice, 6 years of exhaustion, 6 years of telling herself that someday it would all be worth it. And it was. By the time she was 30, Emma had built a life she was proud of. A good job at a hospital in Seattle, a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood, a car that started every morning, and Olivia. Olivia, who was 15 now, the same age Emma had been when everything fell apart. Olivia, who was smart and kind and funny, and everything Emma had ever dreamed she could be. Olivia knew the basics of her story. She knew her father wasn't around. She knew they had struggled before they thrived. She knew her mother had been young, but she didn't know about the park bench. She didn't know about her grandparents. She didn't know about the night Emma's parents had thrown their pregnant daughter into the street and never looked back. Emma had kept that part of the story locked away for 15 years, until the night of Olivia's 15th birthday, when her daughter asked a question that changed everything. The night of Olivia's 15th birthday started like any other celebration. Emma had ordered her daughter's favorite pizza. She had bought a cake with purple frosting because purple had been Olivia's favorite color since she was 3. She had wrapped presents and hung streamers and done everything a mother was supposed to do. But something was different that night. Emma could feel it in the air. A tension she couldn't name. A weight that seemed to press down on the apartment as the hours ticked by. They ate pizza on the couch. They watched a movie Olivia had picked out. They laughed at the same jokes and threw popcorn at each other and pretended everything was normal. Then Olivia paused the movie. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Emma felt her stomach tighten. "Of course, baby. Anything." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. She picked at a thread on her sleeve. She took a breath, then another. "How come I've never met your parents?" The question hit Emma like a punch to the chest. She had known this moment would come. She had dreaded it for 15 years. She had rehearsed answers in her head 1,000 times, trying to find the right words, the right way to explain without explaining too much. But now that the moment was here, all those rehearsed answers disappeared. "What do you mean?" Emma heard herself say. "Your parents. My grandparents." Olivia looked at her mother with those dark eyes that always saw too much. "I know Dad's family isn't around. You've told me that. But you never talk about your family either. There are no photos, no phone calls, no visits. It's like they don't exist." "Olivia, I'm 15 now, Mom. The same age you were when you had me." Olivia's voice was steady, but Emma could hear the hurt underneath. "I think I'm old enough to know the truth." Emma closed her eyes. 15 years. For 15 years, she had carried this secret. For 15 years, she had built a wall around the worst night of her life and refused to let anyone see what was behind it. But walls have a way of crumbling. "You're right," Emma said quietly. "You deserve to know." She told Olivia everything. She told her about the house on Maple Street with the rose garden and the wraparound porch. She told her about Richard Sullivan, the father who demanded perfection. About Margaret Sullivan, the mother who cared more about what the neighbors thought than what her daughter felt. She told her about Brandon Mitchell. "He was 18, Emma said. I was 15. He told me I was special. He told me he loved me. He told me we'd be together forever." "What happened?" "He lied." Emma's voice was flat. "He got what he wanted, and then he disappeared. I found out he had a new girlfriend 2 weeks later. I saw them together at the library. He looked right at me and walked away like I was invisible." Olivia's hands curled into fists. "What a piece of garbage." "I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after that. I was 17 weeks along before I finally told my parents." Emma took a shaky breath. "I thought they would be angry. I thought they would yell. I thought they might ground me for the rest of my life. But I never thought—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "What did they do?" Olivia whispered. "My father told me to pack my things. He gave me 1 hour. Then he threw me out." "He what?" "He threw me out, Olivia. I was 15 years old and pregnant, and my father put a suitcase at my feet and told me to leave." "And your mom? What did she do?" Emma felt the old wound tear open. Even after 15 years, it still hurt. It would always hurt. "Nothing," she said. She stood at the kitchen window with her back turned. She wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't speak to me. I begged her, Olivia. I got on my knees and begged my own mother to help me, and she just stood there. She let him throw me out and she didn't say a single word. Olivia was crying now, tears streaming down her face, her hands shaking. "That's why there are no photos," she said. "That's why you never talk about them. They threw you away." "Yes. You were 15. You were pregnant. You were their daughter. And they just threw you away." "Yes." Olivia was silent for a long moment. Then she said something Emma didn't expect. "Do you ever think about going back?" Emma stared at her daughter. "What? Do you ever think about seeing them again? Finding out what happened to them?" "No." The word came out automatic. Defensive. "I spent 15 years building a life without them. I don't need them. I don't want them." "But don't you wonder?" "Wonder what?" "If they're sorry." Olivia's voice was soft. "If they regret what they did. If they've spent the last 15 years missing you as much as you've tried not to miss them." Emma felt something crack inside her chest. "I don't miss them." "Mom?" "I don't." "You're crying." Emma touched her face. Her fingers came away wet. She hadn't even realized. "It doesn't matter if I miss them," she said. "They made their choice. They chose their reputation over their daughter. They chose what the neighbors thought over my life. That's not something you forgive." "I'm not saying you should forgive them." Olivia took her mother's hand. "I'm saying maybe you need closure. Maybe you need to see them one more time. Not for them, for you." "Olivia, you've spent 15 years running from this mom. 15 years pretending it doesn't hurt. But I can see it. I've always been able to see it. There's this sadness in you that never goes away, and I think it's because you never got to say goodbye. You never got to ask why. You never got to tell them what their choice did to you." Emma shook her head. "Some doors are better left closed. Maybe. Or maybe some doors need to be opened so you can finally walk through them and come out the other side." They sat in silence for a long time after that. The movie played on unwatched. The pizza grew cold. The candles on the birthday cake melted into the purple frosting. But something had shifted between them. Something had cracked open that couldn't be closed again. 2 weeks later, Emma still couldn't stop thinking about it. Olivia's words echoed in her head during her shifts at the hospital. They followed her home on the bus. They whispered to her in the dark when she couldn't sleep. "Do you ever wonder if they're sorry?" She tried to push the thoughts away. She tried to focus on work on Olivia, on the life she had built. But the questions kept coming. Were her parents still alive? Were they still in that house on Maple Street? Did they ever think about her? Did they ever regret what they had done? On a Tuesday night, 2 weeks after Olivia's birthday, Emma did something she had promised herself she would never do. She searched for them. She started with Google. Richard Sullivan, Margaret Sullivan, Willow Creek, Oregon. The search returned thousands of results, none of them useful. She tried Facebook. Nothing. She tried the white pages. The number she found was disconnected. She tried everything she could think of, and she found nothing. No obituaries, no social media profiles, no news articles, no trace of her parents anywhere. It was like they had vanished from the face of the earth. "This is crazy," Emma muttered to herself, staring at her laptop screen at 2 in the morning. "This is absolutely crazy." But she couldn't stop. She called the last number she had for her parents. Disconnected. She called the library in Willow Creek, where she had volunteered. The librarian who answered didn't recognize the Sullivan name. She called the church her family had attended. No one picked up. Dead end after dead end. "Mom?" Emma jumped. Olivia was standing in the doorway of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "What are you doing? It's 2 in the morning." "Nothing. Go back to sleep." Olivia walked over and looked at the laptop screen. Her eyes widened. "You're looking for them." I was curious. It doesn't mean anything." "Mom." Olivia sat down on the bed next to her. "It's okay. You don't have to pretend with me." Emma closed the laptop. "I can't find them. I've looked everywhere. It's like they disappeared." "Maybe that's a sign." "A sign of what?" "That you need to go there, in person. See for yourself what happened. I can't just drive to Willow Creek. It's been 15 years. They probably don't even live there anymore." "Then you'll know. Either way, you'll know. Isn't that better than spending the rest of your life wondering?" Emma looked at her daughter. This girl who had grown up without grandparents, without extended family, without the support system that most children took for granted. This girl who had never once complained about what she didn't have, who had only ever been grateful for what she did have. "When did you get so wise?" Emma asked. Olivia smiled. "I learned from my mom." 3 days later, on a Saturday morning in late March, Emma loaded 2 suitcases into the trunk of her Honda Civic. Olivia climbed into the passenger seat. "You don't have to come," Emma said. "This could be... I don't know what this could be." "That's exactly why I'm coming." Olivia buckled her seatbelt. "Whatever happens, you're not doing this alone." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "When did you become the parent in this relationship?" "About 5 minutes ago. Now drive before you change your mind." Emma drove. The road from Seattle to Willow Creek wound through mountains and forests and small towns that looked like postcards from another era. 4 hours of highway and memories, and a silence that was heavy with everything Emma couldn't say. Olivia tried to lighten the mood. She played music from her phone. She pointed out funny bumper stickers on other cars. She asked Emma questions about her childhood, the good parts, the parts she had let herself remember. "What was your favorite thing about growing up there?" Olivia asked. Emma thought about it. "The summer festivals. Every July the whole town would come together. There was cotton candy and fireworks and games. I won a goldfish once at the ring toss. I named him Sparkle." "What happened to Sparkle?" "He died 3 days later. I cried for a week." Olivia laughed. "You cried for a week over a goldfish." "I was 7. Everything felt like the end of the world when I was 7. "What else do you remember?" "Christmas mornings. My mom would wake me up early before Dad, and we'd sneak downstairs together to look at the presents. She'd make hot chocolate, and we'd sit by the tree and just be together. Those were my favorite moments. Before all the rules and expectations. Before she became the person who cared more about appearances than anything else." "She sounds like she was different once." "She was." Emma's voice grew quiet. "That's what I could never understand. She was a good mother for a long time. And then one night she just stopped." The sign appeared on the horizon. Willow Creek, Oregon. Population 12,847. Emma felt her hands tighten on the steering wheel. "We're here," Olivia said unnecessarily. "I know. How do you feel?" "Terrified." "That's normal." "Is it? I don't know. I've never done anything like this before." Emma almost laughed. Almost. She drove through this town slowly, taking in the changes and the things that had stayed the same. The ice cream shop where she had worked was still there, though it had a different name now. The library where she had seen Brandon with his new girlfriend had been renovated. The church where her mother had organized bake sales had a new coat of paint. 15 years. So much time had passed. So much had changed. And yet, as Emma turned onto Maple Street, she felt like no time had passed at all. The street looked exactly as she remembered. The same houses, the same trees, the same lampposts. "Which one is it?" Olivia asked. "Number 47, the white colonial at the end of the street. My mother's pride and joy. She kept that house so perfect you could eat off the floors." Emma drove slowly, passing house after house, each one triggering some memory. The Hendersons' blue colonial where she had gone to birthday parties. The Petersons' ranch house where Mrs. Peterson had taught her to make apple pie. And then she saw it. Number 47. Emma stopped the car in the middle of the street. "Mom." Olivia's voice was strange. Confused. "Mom, is that the right house?" Emma couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. Because the house in front of her was not the house she remembered. The windows were dark and filthy. Some were cracked, others were boarded up with warped plywood. The shutters hung at crooked angles. The porch was sagging, the wood rotted through. And the rose garden. Her mother's precious rose garden, the one she had tended every day, the one that had won awards, the one that people used to slow down their cars just to admire. It was dead. Nothing but weeds and dry soil and a fallen trellis half buried in the overgrown mess. "That can't be it," Olivia whispered. "Mom, that can't be the same house." But it was. Emma recognized the shape of it, the layout, the way the driveway curved. Even through all the decay and destruction, she recognized her childhood home. What she didn't recognize was what it had become. She pulled the car to the side of the road. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely put it in park. "Stay here," she told Olivia. "No way. I'm coming with you." "Olivia, we already talked about this. Whatever happens, we do it together." They got out of the car and stood on the sidewalk staring at the ruins in front of them. The smell hit them first. A thick, musty odor of decay and neglect. Old garbage, mildew, something rotten underneath. "Are you sure someone lives here?" Olivia asked, covering her nose. Emma didn't answer. She started walking toward the house, picking her way through the trash bags and debris scattered across the lawn. Olivia followed close behind. The porch steps groaned under their weight. Emma tested each one before putting her full weight on it, afraid the rotted wood might give way. The front door was open a few inches, just enough to see darkness inside. Emma raised her hand. She hesitated. 15 years of memories crashed through her mind. Her father's voice. Her mother's silence. The suitcase at her feet. The door closing behind her. She knocked. The sound echoed through the house, hollow and lonely. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Emma heard it. A shuffling sound from somewhere inside. Footsteps. Slow. Uneven. Like someone who had trouble walking. Then a voice. Thin. Weak. Barely above a whisper. Who's there? Emma's heart stopped. She knew that voice, even after 15 years, even filtered through age and whatever had happened in this house. She knew that voice. Mom. The word came out before she could stop it. Mom, it's me. It's Emma. The shuffling stopped. The silence stretched out forever. Then slowly, the door creaked open. And Emma saw her mother for the first time in 15 years. Margaret Sullivan had been beautiful once. Poised. Perfect. The kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and never had a hair out of place. The woman in the doorway was a ghost. She was thin. Too thin. The kind of thin that spoke of meals skipped and health ignored. Her hair was gray and matted. Her face had aged decades. She was wearing a stained housecoat and her feet were bare. But it was her eyes that hit Emma hardest. Those eyes that Emma saw in the mirror every day. They were clouded now. Confused. Frightened. Emma. Margaret's voice cracked. Emma, is that really you? It's me, Mom. Emma's voice was shaking. It's really me. For a long moment, Margaret just stared. Then her face crumpled, and she began to cry. You came back, she whispered. After all this time, you came back. Emma stood frozen on the rotting porch, looking at the ruins of her mother, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to process what 15 years of silence had done to the woman who had once stood at a kitchen window and refused to say goodbye. Emma could not move. She stood on that rotting porch, staring at the ghost of her mother, and felt 15 years of buried pain rise up in her chest like a wave that threatened to drown her. This was not the woman she remembered. Margaret Sullivan had been poised, perfect, untouchable. She had worn pearls to the grocery store. She had ironed tablecloths no one would ever see. She had cared more about what the neighbors thought than about her own daughter's survival. The woman in the doorway looked like she had been hollowed out from the inside, like whatever had kept her alive had been slowly, systematically destroyed. Mom. Emma's voice came out as a whisper. What happened to you? Margaret's hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She reached out like she wanted to touch Emma's face, then stopped herself, like she wasn't sure she had the right. You're really here, she said. I thought I was dreaming. I dream about you sometimes. You come to the door and I open it and you're standing there just like this. But then I wake up and you're gone. I'm not a dream, Mom. I'm here. You're here. Margaret repeated the words like she was trying to make herself believe them. After 15 years, you came back. Olivia stepped forward. Margaret noticed her for the first time, and her face changed. Something flickered in those clouded eyes. Recognition. Wonder. Pain. Is this? Margaret's voice broke. Is this her? Is this your daughter? This is Olivia, Emma said. Your granddaughter. Margaret stared at Olivia like she was looking at a miracle, like she was looking at something she had given up hope of ever seeing. Olivia, she whispered. You're so beautiful. You look just like your mother did at your age. Olivia glanced at Emma, uncertain how to respond. Emma gave her a small nod. "Hi," Olivia said quietly. "It's nice to meet you." Margaret laughed. It was a strange sound, broken and wet with tears. "Nice to meet me. After 15 years of nothing, and she says it's nice to meet me." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her stained housecoat. "I don't deserve nice. I don't deserve any of this." "Mom." Emma's voice hardened. "What happened here? What happened to the house? Where's Dad?" The question landed like a blow. Margaret's face crumpled. She seemed to shrink into herself, becoming even smaller, even more fragile. "Your father," she said slowly. "Your father is gone, Emma." "Gone? What do you mean gone? Did he leave? Did you divorce?" "He died." The words hung in the air between them. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her father, Richard Sullivan, the man who had thrown her out, the man who had looked at his pregnant daughter like she was garbage, the man whose approval she had spent her entire childhood trying to earn. Dead. "When?" Emma managed to ask. 8 years ago, heart attack. He was sitting in his chair watching his crime shows just like he always did. One minute he was there and the next... Margaret made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "The doctor said it was massive, said he was probably gone before he hit the floor, didn't suffer. 8 years. Emma did the math in her head. "He's been dead for 8 years and I didn't know." "How could you know? You disappeared, Emma. You changed your name. You vanished. I tried to find you. After he died, I hired a private investigator, spent the last of our savings. But you were gone. Really gone." "You tried to find me." "Of course I tried to find you." Margaret's voice cracked with something that sounded like desperation. "You're my daughter. You've always been my daughter. Even when I was too weak to fight for you, even when I let your father do what he did, you were still my daughter." Emma felt something hot and angry rise up in her chest. "Then why didn't you stop him?" The words came out sharp, accusatory, 15 years of pain compressed into a single question. "That night, when he threw me out, you just stood there. You didn't say anything. You didn't look at me. You didn't even say goodbye." "I know. I begged you, Mom. I got on my knees and begged you to help me. And you stood at that window with your back turned like I was nothing, like I didn't exist. I know. I was 15 years old. I was pregnant. I was your daughter. And you let him throw me away like garbage." "I know." Margaret's voice rose to something close to a scream. Then she seemed to collapse in on herself, all the fight draining out of her. "I know what I did. I know what I let him do. I've spent every day for 15 years living with it. Every single day." She was crying now, real tears streaming down her weathered face. "You want to know what happened, Emma? You want to know why the house looks like this? Why I look like this?" She gestured weakly at the decay surrounding them. "This is what happens when you destroy everything that matters. This is what guilt looks like. This is what 15 years of punishment looks like." Emma didn't know what to say. She had imagined this moment so many times over the years. She had imagined confronting her mother. She had imagined screaming at her, demanding answers, making her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused. But she had never imagined this. She had never imagined finding her mother broken and alone, living in the ruins of everything she had once held dear. "What happened?" Emma asked again. Her voice was softer now. Not forgiving. Just tired. "After I left, what happened to you?" Margaret was silent for a long moment. Then she turned and walked into the darkness of the house. "Come inside," she said. "I'll tell you everything." The inside of the house was worse than the outside. Emma had braced herself for it, but nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. Piles of newspapers stacked along the walls, some of them yellow with age. Garbage bags that had never made it outside. Dishes crusted with old food. Dust covering everything like a gray shroud. And the smell. that thick, musty odor of decay and neglect that made Emma want to turn around and run. But she didn't run. She followed her mother through the wreckage of her childhood home, Olivia close behind her, both of them stepping carefully around the debris. Margaret led them to the living room, or what had once been the living room. The furniture was still there, but it was buried under layers of clutter. The television was dark and dusty. The grandfather clock that Emma remembered had stopped, its hands frozen at 3:47. "Sit," Margaret said, gesturing vaguely at the couch. "If you can find a place." Emma moved some newspapers aside and sat down. Olivia sat next to her, pressing close her hand, finding Emma's. Margaret lowered herself into an armchair across from them. The same armchair Emma's father had sat in the night he threw her out. "After you left," Margaret began, "everything fell apart." She spoke slowly, her voice distant, like she was recounting something that had happened to someone else. "Your father couldn't handle it. The shame, the neighbors talking, the people at church whispering. He had built his whole life around being perfect, around having the perfect family. And in one night, all of that was gone." "Because of me," Emma said flatly. "No," Margaret shook her head. "Because of what he did. What we did. He could have handled it differently. We could have handled it differently. But he chose his reputation over his daughter, and he spent the rest of his life paying for that choice." "How?" "He started drinking. At first it was just a glass of whiskey after dinner. Then it was half a bottle. Then it was a bottle a day." Margaret's voice grew hollow. "He couldn't focus at work. Made mistakes. Got written up. Then fired." Emma listened in stunned silence. "We burned through our savings in a year trying to keep up appearances. Then we burned through the retirement fund. Then we took out a second mortgage on the house." "The house," Emma repeated. "Mom's pride and joy." Margaret laughed bitterly. "Yes, my pride and joy. The thing I cared about more than my own daughter." She looked around at the ruins surrounding them. "Look at it now. Look at what my pride got me." "What about Dad? What happened to him?" "He bounced from job to job, accountant to bookkeeper to cashier to nothing at all. The drinking got worse. The fights got worse. Our marriage, which I had thought was so solid, so perfect, crumbled into nothing." Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. "By the end, we barely spoke. We lived in the same house like strangers. He sat in that chair every night drinking and watching his shows, and I sat in the kitchen wondering how everything had gone so wrong. And then he died. And then he died. 8 years ago, right there in that chair." Margaret pointed at the empty armchair, and Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "I found him in the morning. He'd been there all night. The television was still on." Olivia's grip on Emma's hand tightened. "Was there a funeral?" Emma asked. Margaret shook her head. "No money. No one to come anyway. His family had stopped speaking to us years before. His friends from work had all moved on. The neighbors who used to wave from their porches wouldn't even look at me anymore." She laughed again, that broken, hollow sound. "I buried him in the cheapest plot I could find. No headstone, no service, no obituary. That's why I couldn't find anything online," Emma said. "I searched for months. There was nothing. There was nothing because there was nothing left. No money, no family, no reputation. Just me alone in this house waiting." "Waiting for what?" Margaret looked at Emma with those clouded eyes, and for a moment Emma saw a flash of the mother she had known, the mother who had braided her hair before school, the mother who had made hot chocolate on Christmas morning, the mother who had existed before fear and pride and a husband's demands had turned her into someone else. "Waiting for you," Margaret said simply. "Waiting for the day you would come back. I knew you would, someday. I knew you would want answers. I knew you would want to see what had become of us." She spread her arms, encompassing the decay. "Well, now you see." Emma felt tears burning in her eyes. She blinked them back. "Why didn't you come after me?" she asked. "That night, or the next day, or any day in the first year. Why didn't you come find me?" "Your father said if I went after you, I shouldn't bother coming back." "And you believed him?" I was afraid. Margaret's voice broke. I was a coward, Emma. A weak, stupid coward. I had spent my whole marriage doing what your father told me to do. I didn't know how to be anything else. I didn't know how to stand up to him. I didn't know how to choose my daughter over my husband. So you chose him. I chose fear. I chose the life I knew over the unknown. I chose wrong. Margaret was sobbing now. I chose wrong, Emma. I chose wrong, and I've spent every day since then wishing I could go back and make a different choice. Emma stood up abruptly. She couldn't sit still anymore. She couldn't process this. 15 years of anger and pain and unanswered questions, and now she was getting answers she didn't know what to do with. She walked to the window, the same window where her mother had stood that night. The same window where Margaret had turned her back on her own daughter. I slept on a park bench that first night, Emma said. Her voice was flat, distant. Did you know that I sat on a bench in the park at the end of Maple Street and waited for you to come? I waited all night. Emma, every time I saw headlights I thought it was you. I thought you had changed your mind. I thought you were coming to bring me home. Emma turned to face her mother. But you never came. I wanted to. God, Emma, I wanted to. That night after you left, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake all night thinking about you out there alone, pregnant with nowhere to go. I wanted to get in the car and find you and bring you home and tell your father to go to hell. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. And by morning you were gone. I drove to the park, Emma. I did. But you weren't there anymore. You had already left, and I didn't know where to look. Emma felt something crack inside her chest. All these years, she had believed her mother hadn't cared. She had believed Margaret had turned her back and never looked back. But Margaret had gone to the park. She had been too late, hours too late. But she had gone. It didn't change what had happened. It didn't excuse 15 years of silence. But it was something. A small piece of a puzzle Emma had been trying to solve her entire adult life. I lived in a shelter for months, Emma said. A place called Hope House. I got my GED. I worked 3 jobs. I put myself through nursing school while raising a baby on my own. She looked at Olivia, who was watching her with tears streaming down her face. I built a life, a good life, without you, without either of you. I know, Margaret said, and I'm so proud of you, Emma, more proud than you could ever know. Don't. Emma's voice hardened. Don't tell me you're proud of me. You don't get to be proud. You gave up that right the night you let Dad throw me out. I know I don't deserve. You don't deserve anything from me. You don't deserve my forgiveness. You don't deserve my understanding. You don't deserve to know your granddaughter. Margaret flinched like she had been struck. But Mom... Olivia's voice cut through the tension. Both women turned to look at her. She's sorry. Can't you see that she spent 15 years punishing herself? Olivia... No, listen to me. Olivia stood up and walked to her mother. I know what she did was wrong. I know it was unforgivable. But look at her. Look at this house. Look at what her life has become. She lost everything, her husband, her home, her reputation, everything she cared about. And she's been living in this hell for 8 years alone, waiting for the one person she hurt the most to come back. She made her choice. And she's paid for it every single day. Can't you see that? Emma looked at her mother, really looked at her. Margaret Sullivan was 72 years old. She was frail and sick and broken. She had lost her husband, her home, her standing in the community, everything she had once valued. She had been living in this rotting house for 8 years, surrounded by garbage and guilt, waiting for a daughter who might never return. And now that daughter was here. And Margaret wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't making excuses. She wasn't trying to justify what she had done. She was just sitting there, small and broken, accepting whatever judgment Emma chose to pass. I don't expect you to forgive me, Margaret said quietly. "I don't deserve forgiveness. What we did to you, what I did to you, there's no excuse for it. I was your mother. I was supposed to protect you. And instead I let you be thrown away like you were nothing." "Mom, let me finish, please." Margaret took a shaky breath. "You were my daughter, my only child. And I chose my fear over you. I chose my husband's approval over your safety. I chose what the neighbors thought over my own flesh and blood." Her voice cracked. "And I have hated myself for it every single day since." Emma felt something shift inside her. Something she had held on to for 15 years. Something hard and cold and protective began to soften. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was something. "When was the last time you saw a doctor?" Emma asked. The question clearly surprised Margaret. "What? A doctor? When was the last time you saw one?" "I don't know. Years ago, before the insurance ran out." "And when was the last time you ate a real meal?" Margaret looked confused. "I manage. There's a convenience store that delivers." Emma looked around at the house, at the piles of garbage, at the layers of filth, at her mother sitting in that armchair, looking like she might blow away if the wind picked up. She made a decision. "You can't stay here," Emma said. "What? This house, this life. You can't keep living like this. I don't have anywhere else to go." "Yes, you do." The words came out before Emma could stop them, before she could think about what she was saying. "You're coming with us, back to Seattle." Margaret stared at her. "Emma, you can't possibly." "I'm not doing this for you." Emma's voice was firm. "I'm doing this because leaving you here to die alone in this house would make me as bad as you were, and I refuse to be that person. I don't deserve—" "You're right, you don't. But you're getting it anyway." Emma turned to Olivia. "Help me find whatever she needs to take. We're leaving today." Olivia nodded and moved toward the hallway. Margaret sat frozen in her chair, tears streaming down her face. "Emma," she whispered, "why, after everything I did, why would you help me?" Emma paused at the doorway. She didn't turn around. "Because I have a daughter now," she said, "and I want her to know that when someone is broken, you help them, even if they hurt you, even if they don't deserve it. That's what family is supposed to be." She walked out of the room before her mother could respond. It took 2 hours to gather what little Margaret wanted to keep. A few photo albums from before Emma was born, some jewelry that had belonged to her grandmother, a small box of letters Emma didn't ask about, and one rose bush. Margaret insisted on digging it up from the ruins of her garden. It was the only thing still alive out there, a single stubborn plant that had somehow survived years of neglect. "It's the last one," Margaret said, cradling the root ball like a baby. "Everything else died, but this one kept growing. I don't know why. I stopped watering it years ago. I stopped caring about anything years ago, but it just kept growing." Emma looked at that rose bush clinging to life against all odds and felt something she couldn't quite name. Maybe survival ran in the family. They loaded everything into the Honda Civic. Olivia helped Margaret into the back seat. Emma took one last look at the house on Maple Street, the house where she had grown up, the house she had been thrown out of 15 years ago. It looked even worse in the afternoon light, a skeleton of what it had once been, a monument to pride and fear and choices that could never be undone. "Goodbye," Emma said quietly. She didn't know if she was saying goodbye to the house, or to her father, or to the girl she had been before everything fell apart. Maybe all of them. She got in the car and started the engine. Margaret was crying softly in the back seat, clutching her rescued rosebush, staring out the window at the only home she had ever known. Olivia reached back and took her grandmother's hand, and Emma pulled away from Maple Street for the last time, leaving the ruins of the past behind them, driving toward something that might, with time, become a future. The drive back to Seattle was long and quiet. Margaret fell asleep after the first hour, exhausted by the emotions of the day. Olivia sat in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing back at her grandmother, still processing everything she had witnessed. "Mom," she said quietly, "are you okay?" Emma kept her eyes on the road. "I don't know. What you did back there, taking her in, that was really brave. Or really stupid. Maybe both." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "Do you think you can forgive her?" "Someday." Emma thought about it. She thought about the park bench and the garbage cans and the years of struggle. She thought about her mother standing at that window, refusing to turn around. She thought about the broken woman in the back seat, waiting 8 years in that rotting house for a daughter who might never come home. "I don't know," Emma said finally, "but I think I want to try." Olivia nodded. "That's enough. For now, that's enough." 3 hours later, they pulled into Seattle. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city stretched out before them, familiar and welcoming, a reminder of the life Emma had built from nothing. Margaret stirred in the back seat. She opened her eyes and looked around, disoriented. "Where are we?" "Home," Emma said. "We're home." Margaret looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't deserve this, but thank you." Emma didn't respond. She just kept driving, carrying her mother toward a future that neither of them could have imagined 15 years ago, when a suitcase hit the floor and a door closed and everything they knew fell apart. The first night was the hardest. Emma gave Margaret her own bedroom and insisted she would sleep on the couch. Margaret protested weakly, but she was too exhausted to argue. Within minutes of lying down, she was asleep. Emma sat in the living room staring at the wall, unable to close her eyes. Olivia found her there at midnight. "Can't sleep?" Olivia asked, settling onto the couch beside her. "No." "Me neither." Olivia pulled her knees up to her chest. "This is weird, right? Having her here. Weird doesn't begin to cover it." "Do you regret bringing her?" Emma thought about it. She thought about the drive back, 4 hours of silence and tension, and questions she didn't know how to ask. She thought about Margaret in the back seat, clutching that rose bush like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "No," Emma said finally. "I don't regret it. I just don't know what comes next." "Maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't have to know everything right now." "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just never noticed." Emma almost smiled. Almost. The first week was chaos. Margaret was like a ghost in the apartment. She barely spoke. She barely ate. She would sit by the window for hours staring at the Seattle skyline, her hands trembling in her lap. Emma didn't know how to talk to her. 15 years of silence had built walls between them that couldn't be torn down in a day. Every conversation felt forced, every interaction awkward. "Did you sleep well?" Emma would ask. "Yes, thank you," Margaret would reply, and then silence. Olivia tried to bridge the gap. She would sit with Margaret and show her things on her phone. She would tell her about school, about her friends, about the life she had built in Seattle. Margaret listened with hungry eyes, drinking in every detail of the granddaughter she had never known. "Tell me about your favorite subject," Margaret said one afternoon. "English. I love to write." "Your mother loved to write too. When she was your age, she filled notebooks with stories." Olivia looked at Emma, surprised. "You never told me that." Emma shrugged. "It was a long time ago." "She was good at it," Margaret continued. "Really good. I always thought she would become a writer someday." "What happened?" Margaret's face fell. "Life happened, and then I happened. I took her dreams away from her." "Mom has new dreams now," Olivia said firmly. "She's a nurse. She helps people every day. She's amazing at it." "I know." Margaret's voice was soft. "I know she is." On the 8th day, Emma took Margaret to the doctor. The appointment was brutal. Margaret sat on the examination table looking small and frail in her hospital gown, while the doctor reviewed her test results with a grim expression. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to be honest with you. Your health is in serious condition." "How serious?" Emma asked. "Severely malnourished, untreated high blood pressure, borderline diabetes, early signs of kidney disease." The doctor looked at Margaret. "When was the last time you saw a physician?" "I don't remember. Years ago." "Have you been taking any medications?" "No." "Eating regular meals?" Margaret didn't answer. She didn't have to. The doctor turned to Emma. "She's lucky to be alive. Another year or two living the way she was, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Emma felt something twist in her chest. Anger, guilt, fear. She didn't know which one was winning. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We start treatment immediately. Medications for the blood pressure and prediabetes. A strict diet plan. Regular checkups." The doctor paused. "And she needs someone to take care of her. She can't do this alone." "She won't be alone," Emma said. "I'll make sure of it." Margaret looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. "Emma, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to." The words surprised Emma as much as they surprised Margaret. But as soon as she said them, she knew they were true. She didn't forgive her mother. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she wasn't going to let her die alone in that apartment, surrounded by pill bottles and regret. That wasn't who Emma was. That wasn't who she wanted to be. The second week brought small changes. Margaret started eating regular meals. Emma made sure of it, cooking breakfast before her shifts and leaving dinner in the refrigerator with strict instructions. Olivia checked in on her grandmother every afternoon, making sure she took her medications, making sure she wasn't slipping back into the darkness. Slowly, color returned to Margaret's cheeks. She gained a few pounds. Her hands stopped shaking so much. But the real change was harder to see. It happened on a Sunday morning 3 weeks after they had returned from Willow Creek. Emma was making coffee in the kitchen when she heard a sound from the living room. A soft, rhythmic humming. She walked to the doorway and stopped. Margaret was sitting on the couch, Emma's old photo album spread open on the coffee table. She was looking at pictures of Olivia as a baby, as a toddler, as a gap-toothed first grader. And she was humming. Emma recognized the tune immediately. It was the song Margaret used to hum when she braided Emma's hair before school. The song Emma had forgotten until this moment. The song that had been buried under 15 years of pain and anger and trying to forget. "I missed all of this," Margaret said without looking up. She had sensed Emma's presence somehow. Every smile, every milestone, every moment. Emma crossed the room and sat down on the other end of the couch. "I had to do it alone," she said. "All of it. The midnight feedings, the first steps, the first day of school. I had no one." "I know," Margaret's voice cracked. "And I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm sorry for all the moments I should have been there and wasn't. I'm sorry for the grandmother I should have been and wasn't. I'm sorry for everything." "Sorry doesn't change what happened." "No, it doesn't." Margaret finally looked up. Her eyes were red from crying. "But I need you to know something. I need you to understand." "Understand what?" "That night. The night your father threw you out. I didn't sleep. Not for a second. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about you out there in the dark. Alone. Pregnant. Terrified." Her voice broke. "I wanted to go after you. I wanted to get in the car and find you and bring you home. I wanted to tell your father to go to hell." "But you didn't." "No, I was too scared. Too weak. Too conditioned to do what he said." Margaret's hands were shaking again. "But the next morning, Emma. The next morning I went to the park." Emma felt her heart stop. "What?" "I went to the park at the end of Maple Street. I knew you would go there. I knew it was your favorite place. I went there at dawn, hoping to find you, hoping to bring you home." "I was there all night," Emma whispered. "I left at sunrise. Just before sunrise." Margaret's face crumpled. "I know, I was too late. By the time I got there, you were gone. I drove around for hours looking for you. I called everyone I could think of. But you had vanished." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. She hadn't even realized she was crying. All these years, she had believed her mother hadn't cared. She had believed Margaret had turned her back and never looked back. But Margaret had gone to the park. She had been too late. Hours too late. But she had gone. "Why didn't you keep looking?" Emma asked. "Why didn't you hire someone call the police?" "Your father forbade it. He said you had made your choice, and we had to live with it. He said if I went looking for you, I might as well not come back." Margaret's voice was bitter. "And I believed him. I was so scared of losing everything that I lost the only thing that mattered. Me. You." Margaret reached out and took Emma's hand. It was the first time she had touched her daughter since arriving in Seattle. "I chose wrong, Emma. I chose fear over love. I chose my husband over my child. And I have spent every day since then regretting it." Emma didn't pull away. She sat there holding her mother's hand, feeling the fragile bones beneath the papery skin, and something inside her began to shift. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something. "I want to try," Emma said quietly. "Try what?" "To move forward. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I don't know if I can ever forget what happened, but I want to try to build something new, something different." Margaret was crying openly now. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not, but I'm offering it anyway." They sat there for a long time, mother and daughter holding hands across 15 years of silence and pain. It wasn't a magical reconciliation. It wasn't a hallmark moment where everything was suddenly okay. But it was a start. And sometimes, a start is enough. A month after arriving in Seattle, Margaret moved into her own apartment. Emma found her a place in the same building just 2 floors down. Close enough to check in every day. Far enough to maintain boundaries. "Are you sure about this?" Margaret asked as Emma helped her unpack. "I could find somewhere else, somewhere that isn't so close." "This is where I want you," Emma said. "Where I can keep an eye on you." "You don't have to take care of me, Emma. You've done enough." "I'm not doing this for you." Emma set down a box of kitchen supplies. "I'm doing this for Olivia. She wants a grandmother, a real one. And I'm not going to take that away from her because of what happened 15 years ago." Margaret nodded slowly. "I'll try to be worthy of her. That's all I'm asking." They established a routine over the following weeks. Sunday dinners at Emma's apartment. Wednesday movie nights with Olivia. Daily phone calls to make sure Margaret was taking her medications and eating properly. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward silences. There were still moments when the old anger flared up when Emma would look at her mother and remember the kitchen window, and the turned back, and the silence that had lasted 15 years. But there were good moments too. Moments when Margaret would teach Olivia how to make her grandmother's famous apple pie. Moments when Emma would come home from a long shift to find her mother and daughter laughing together over old photo albums. Moments when the apartment felt like a home in a way it never had before. 3 months after Margaret arrived in Seattle, Emma received a phone call that changed everything. She was at work in the middle of a shift when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually spam, but something made her pick up. "Is this Emma Sullivan?" The voice on the other end was professional, official. "I mean Emma Brooks." Emma's blood ran cold. No one had called her Sullivan in 15 years. "Who is this?" "My name is Detective Sarah Walsh. I'm calling from Willow Creek, Oregon. I'm reaching out because we've recently reopened a cold case investigation, and your name came up in some old files." "What kind of investigation?" It's regarding a young woman who went missing in 2009, approximately 1 month after you left Willow Creek. Her name was Stephanie Carter. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Stephanie, the blonde girl she had seen with Brandon at the library, the girl wearing his varsity jacket, the girl he had chosen over Emma. I remember her, Emma said slowly. I didn't know her personally, but I knew who she was. She was dating someone I used to know. Brandon Mitchell. The name hit Emma like a physical blow. Yes, she managed to say. Brandon Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell has been a person of interest in this case for some time. We've recently received new evidence that's reopened the investigation. The detective paused. I'm calling everyone who knew him during that time period. Anyone who might be able to help us establish a pattern of behavior. A pattern of behavior. Witnesses have come forward with stories about Mr. Mitchell, stories about his temper, his controlling nature, the way girls seem to disappear from his life without warning. Another pause. You dated him briefly in the summer of 2009, correct? Emma closed her eyes. Brandon Mitchell, the boy who had told her she was special, the boy who had promised to love her forever, the boy who had gotten what he wanted and then vanished like smoke. Yes, she said. I dated him, briefly. Can you tell me about your experience with him? Emma told her everything. She told her about the secrecy, about how Brandon never wanted to be seen with her in public, about how he got angry when she mentioned other boys, about how he made her feel special while keeping her hidden from everyone else. She told her about the night at Miller's Pond, about the promises he made, about how he disappeared 2 weeks later without a word. She told her about seeing him at the library with Stephanie, about the way he had looked at her like she was invisible, like she had never existed. And you never heard from him again after that? The detective asked. Never. He moved on to Stephanie, and I became just another girl he had used and discarded. Did he ever threaten you, physically harm you? No, he didn't have to. He just erased me, like I had never mattered at all. The detective was quiet for a moment. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. This is very helpful. What happened to Stephanie? You said she went missing. She disappeared in September 2009. No one ever found her. The detective's voice grew heavy. Until last month, a construction crew found remains on a property outside of town. DNA confirmed it was Stephanie Carter. Emma felt sick. Are you saying Brandon killed her? I'm saying we have reason to believe he was involved. We're building a case now. The detective paused. This is off the record, but several other women have come forward with similar stories. Women Brandon dated over the years. Women who experienced his controlling behavior, his anger when they tried to leave him. How many women? At least 6. And those are just the ones we know about. Another pause. You were one of the lucky ones, Ms. Brooks. You got away from him before things escalated. Emma hung up the phone and stood in the hospital hallway, unable to move. Brandon Mitchell, the boy she had given everything to, the boy who had taken her virginity and her trust and then thrown her away. He was a murderer, and she had almost been one of his victims. 6 months later, Brandon Mitchell was arrested. Emma followed the case obsessively. She read every news article. She watched every court appearance. She listened to the testimony of the other women who had survived him, women who told stories so similar to her own that it made her sick. He had been doing this for years, targeting young girls, gaining their trust, using them and discarding them. And when Stephanie had tried to leave him, when she had threatened to tell people what he was really like, he had made sure she could never tell anyone anything again. 8 months after his arrest, Brandon Mitchell was convicted of second-degree murder. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. Emma watched the verdict on the news, sitting on her couch with Margaret and Olivia on either side of her. When the judge read the sentence, she felt something release in her chest, something she had been carrying for 15 years without even knowing it. He can never hurt anyone again, Olivia said quietly. No, Emma agreed. He can't. Margaret reached over and took Emma's hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea. How could you? I never told you about him. I never told anyone. You were just a child. And that man. Margaret's voice hardened with an anger Emma had never heard from her before. That monster. He targeted you because you were young and innocent and trusting. He took advantage of your goodness. I thought he loved me. He wasn't capable of love. Men like him are only capable of destruction. Margaret squeezed Emma's hand. But you survived him. You got away. And look at what you've built. Look at the life you've created. Look at the daughter you've raised. Emma looked at Olivia, who was watching her with tears in her eyes. I never knew, Olivia said. All these years, I never knew how close you came to. It doesn't matter, Emma said. What matters is that I got away. What matters is that I survived. What matters is that I have you. You have us, Margaret corrected gently. Both of us. For as long as you want us. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. But for the first time in 15 years, they weren't tears of pain or anger or regret. They were tears of release. The summer after Brandon's conviction, Emma did something she had never imagined doing. She started dating. His name was James. He was a physical therapist at the hospital, divorced with no kids, with kind eyes and a gentle voice, and a way of looking at Emma that made her feel seen for the first time in her life. Their first date was coffee. Their second was dinner. By the fifth date, Emma found herself telling him things she had never told anyone. I have a lot of baggage, she warned him. More than most people. Everyone has baggage, James said. The question is whether you're willing to unpack it together. You might not like what you find. Let me be the judge of that. So Emma told him. She told him about Brandon, about her parents, about the night she was thrown out and the years she had spent rebuilding her life from nothing. James listened without interrupting, without judging, without trying to fix anything. When she was finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. Thank you for telling me, he said. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Emma? What? I see the strongest person I've ever met. Someone who survived things that would have destroyed most people. Someone who built a beautiful life out of nothing. Someone who raised an amazing daughter and found a way to forgive a mother who didn't deserve forgiveness. I haven't forgiven her. Not completely. But you're trying. That takes more strength than holding on to anger ever could. James squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. Not unless you want me to. And I'm willing to prove that for as long as it takes. Emma looked at this man, this patient, kind, genuine man, and felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years. Hope. Okay, she said softly. Let's see where this goes. A year later, James had become part of the family. He was there for Sunday dinners, helping Margaret chop vegetables, while Emma cooked and Olivia set the table. He was there for Wednesday movie nights, letting Olivia pick the films, even when they were terrible teenage comedies. He was there when Margaret had a health scare, sitting with Emma in the hospital waiting room, holding her hand through the long hours of uncertainty. He was there. And for someone who had spent 15 years learning that people always leave, that was everything. He's a good man, Margaret said one afternoon, watching James and Olivia argue playfully over the last slice of pizza. I know, Emma said. Do you love him? Emma thought about it. She thought about the way James made her laugh, the way he listened without judging, the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. Yes, she said, I think I do. Then hold on to him. Good men are rare. Is that experience talking? Margaret's face fell slightly. Your father wasn't always bad, Emma. In the beginning, he was kind, attentive. He made me feel safe. She paused. But somewhere along the way he changed. Or maybe I just started seeing him clearly for the first time. Either way, by the time I realized what he had become, it was too late. I was too deep in to get out. That's not an excuse for what he did, for what you let him do. No, it's not. Margaret looked at her daughter. But it's an explanation. Sometimes people make terrible choices, not because they're terrible people, but because they're trapped, because they're scared, because they can't see any other way out. Is that how you felt trapped? Every single day, from the moment I said I do until the moment he died. Margaret's voice grew quiet. That's why I never fought back when he threw you out. Not because I didn't love you, not because I didn't care, but because I was so deep in my own prison that I couldn't see a way to save you without destroying myself. You should have destroyed yourself, Emma said. The words came out harsher than she intended. You should have walked out that door with me. You should have chosen your daughter. I know. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I know I should have, and if I could go back, if I could have that moment again, I would choose differently. I would walk out that door with you and never look back. But you can't go back. No, I can't. All I can do is try to be better now. Try to be the mother I should have been then. Margaret reached out and touched Emma's face, a gesture so tender that Emma felt her heart crack. You are my greatest achievement, Emma. Not despite what happened, but because of it. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something beautiful. You became someone I am so incredibly proud of. Emma felt tears rolling down her cheeks. I spent 15 years hating you. I know. I spent 15 years wishing you had never existed. I know. And now... Emma's voice broke. And now I don't know what I feel anymore. Margaret pulled her daughter into a hug. It was the first real hug they had shared since Emma was 14 years old. The first hug that wasn't about obligation or awkwardness or trying to make things normal. It was just a mother holding her daughter, a mother who had failed, a daughter who had survived. And somehow, against all odds, they were finding their way back to each other. I love you, Emma, Margaret whispered. I always have, even when I was too weak to show it, even when I was too scared to fight for you. I never stopped loving you. Emma closed her eyes and let herself sink into the embrace. I love you too, Mom, she said. And she meant it. 2 years had passed since that day in Willow Creek. 2 years since Emma had found her mother living like a ghost in the ruins of their family home. 2 years since she had made the impossible decision to bring Margaret back to Seattle. 2 years of healing, of struggling, of learning how to be a family again. And now Emma was standing in a high school auditorium watching her daughter walk across a stage to receive her diploma. Olivia Sullivan, valedictorian, headed to nursing school in the fall. Emma couldn't breathe. She had imagined this moment so many times over the years. She had dreamed of it during those long nights when she was working 3 jobs, when she was studying for exams, while Olivia slept in a car seat beside her, when she was wondering if any of the sacrifice would ever be worth it. Now she knew. It was worth it. Every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every moment of doubt and fear and exhaustion. It was all worth it for this. Mom! Olivia's voice crackled through the microphone. She was giving her valedictorian speech, and she had gone off script. Mom, I know you're out there, and I know you told me not to make this about you, but I can't help it. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. 18 years ago, my mother was 15 years old. She was pregnant. She was alone. She had nothing except a suitcase and $47 and the determination to survive. Olivia's voice was steady, but Emma could hear the emotion underneath. She could have given up. A lot of people would have. But she didn't. The auditorium was silent. Every eye was on Olivia. She worked 3 jobs while raising me. She put herself through nursing school. She built a life from nothing with no help from anyone. Olivia paused. And she did it all so that I could stand here today. Emma felt James squeeze her hand. On her other side, Margaret was crying silently, her frail shoulders shaking. I'm not standing here because I'm special, Olivia continued. I'm standing here because my mother refused to let me fail. Because she showed me what strength looks like, what sacrifice looks like, what love looks like. Her voice cracked. Mom, everything I am, everything I will ever be, is because of you. Emma couldn't hold back the sobs anymore. She didn't try. So when they hand me this diploma, I want everyone to know that it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the woman who earned it through 17 years of blood, sweat, and tears. It belongs to Emma Sullivan. Olivia looked directly at her mother. Thank you, Mom, for never giving up, for never letting me give up, for proving that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. The auditorium erupted in applause. Emma stood up. She didn't plan to. Her body just moved on its own. And then she was pushing through the row of seats, walking toward the stage, not caring that she was breaking every rule of graduation ceremony protocol. Olivia met her at the edge of the stage. They held each other while the audience cheered. Mother and daughter, survivor and miracle. Two people who had started with nothing and built everything together. I love you, Mom, Olivia whispered. I love you too, baby, more than you'll ever know. The party afterward was chaos. Emma had rented out the back room of Olivia's favorite restaurant. Friends from school packed the space laughing and taking pictures and celebrating the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. James was there, of course, helping Margaret navigate through the crowd, making sure she had a comfortable seat and a plate of food. He had become so natural in their lives that Emma sometimes forgot there had been a time before him. You okay? He asked, finding Emma in a quiet corner. I think I'm in shock. Good shock or bad shock? I don't know yet. Emma looked around the room, at Olivia surrounded by friends, at Margaret watching her granddaughter with tears of joy, at the life she had built from nothing. I never imagined any of this, James. When I was sleeping on that park bench, when I was eating out of garbage cans, I never imagined I would have this. But you do have it. You earned it. Did I? Sometimes. I feel like I'm still waiting for it all to fall apart, like I'm still that scared 15-year-old girl who doesn't deserve anything good. James turned her to face him. Listen to me, Emma. You are the most deserving person I have ever met. You survived things that would have destroyed most people. You raised an incredible daughter. You found a way to forgive your mother. You built a career, a home, a family. He touched her face gently. You deserve every good thing that comes your way, and I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. Emma's heart stopped. James, what are you saying? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm saying I love you, Emma Sullivan. I'm saying I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I'm saying I want to be there for every graduation, every holiday, every ordinary Tuesday night. He opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant and beautiful. Will you marry me? Emma couldn't speak. She couldn't think. She could only stare at the ring, and then at James, and then at the ring again. Mom! Olivia's voice cut through the noise of the party. She was pushing through the crowd, her eyes wide. Mom, did he just… Yes, Emma said. The word came out before she could stop it, before she could overthink it, before she could let 15 years of fear and distrust convince her to say no. Yes. Yes. Emma was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. James slipped the ring on her finger, and then he was kissing her, and then Olivia was hugging both of them, and then Margaret was there too, tears streaming down her face. My baby's getting married, Margaret whispered. My baby's finally getting her happy ending. Emma looked at her mother, at this woman who had hurt her so deeply, at this woman who had spent 3 years trying to make amends, at this woman who had become against all odds a real mother again. Not an ending, Emma said. A beginning. 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Emma Sullivan became Emma Brooks. The ceremony was small, just family and a few close friends. They held it in a garden that Margaret had helped plant in the months leading up to the wedding. Roses of every color, a tribute to the garden Margaret had once loved and destroyed through neglect. "Something old," Margaret said that morning, pressing a pearl necklace into Emma's hands. "These were my mother's, and her mother's before her. I want you to have them." Emma looked at the pearls. She remembered seeing them around her mother's neck at church events, at dinner parties, at all the occasions where appearances mattered more than anything else. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Margaret's eyes were bright with tears. "You're my daughter, Emma, my only child, and today you're starting a new chapter. I want you to carry something of our family with you." "Our family." Emma repeated the words slowly. "I spent 15 years trying to forget I had a family. I know, and that was my fault, your father's fault." Margaret took Emma's hands. "But we have a new family now. You and me and Olivia and James. A family built on truth instead of lies. On love instead of fear. And forgiveness." Margaret's voice caught. "Have you forgiven me?" Emma thought about it. She thought about the kitchen window, the turned back, the silence that had lasted 15 years. She thought about the park bench and the garbage cans and the years of struggle. But she also thought about the past 3 years, the Sunday dinners, the Wednesday movie nights, the small moments of connection that had slowly, painfully built something new between them. "I'm getting there," Emma said honestly. "I don't know if I'll ever completely forgive what happened, but I've let go of the anger. I've stopped letting it define me." She squeezed her mother's hands. "And I've gained something I never thought I'd have again, a mother." Margaret pulled her into a fierce hug. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for letting me be part of your life again. Thank you for not letting me die alone in that house." "Thank you for trying to be better," Emma replied. "Thank you for showing up every day. Thank you for being the grandmother Olivia deserves." They held each other for a long moment, mother and daughter, two women who had lost each other and found their way back. Then there was a knock on the door. "Mom?" Olivia's voice came through. "It's time." Emma looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The white dress, the pearl necklace, the woman staring back at her, who looked nothing like the scared, desperate girl who had slept on park benches and eaten out of garbage cans. "Ready?" Margaret asked. Emma smiled. "Ready." The wedding was everything Emma had never allowed herself to dream of. James cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Olivia served as maid of honor, her speech full of jokes and tears and love. Margaret sat in the front row, clutching a handkerchief, beaming like a woman who had finally found redemption. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was only silence. When James said, "I do," his voice was steady and sure. When Emma said, "I do," she felt something shift inside her. The last wall she had built around her heart, the one she had constructed that night on the park bench, finally came down. She was not alone anymore. She would never be alone again. A year after the wedding, Emma received another phone call. She was at home cooking dinner, while James helped Olivia move into her college dorm over FaceTime, when her phone rang. The caller ID said Willow Creek PD. "Mrs. Brooks, this is Detective Walsh. We spoke a few years ago about the Brandon Mitchell case." Emma felt her stomach clench. "Yes, I remember. I wanted to let you know that we've closed the investigation into Stephanie Carter's murder. Mr. Mitchell received a life sentence without possibility of parole. I know, I followed the trial. What you might not know is that your testimony was instrumental in establishing the pattern of behavior that helped convict him." The detective paused. "Several other women came forward after seeing your statement. Women who had been afraid to speak up before. Your courage gave them courage." Emma didn't know what to say. "I thought you should know," Detective Walsh continued. "You helped put away a monster. You helped get justice for Stephanie and for all the other women he hurt. You should be proud of that." After Emma hung up, she stood in the kitchen for a long time, thinking about Brandon Mitchell, the boy who had told her she was special, the boy who had used her and discarded her, the boy who had killed Stephanie Carter and would have killed others if he hadn't been stopped. She had escaped him. By pure luck, by timing, by the universe deciding that Emma Sullivan had suffered enough, she had escaped him. And now, 20 years later, she had helped put him away forever. "Everything okay?" James asked, walking into the kitchen. Emma looked at her husband. At this kind, gentle man who had never raised his voice to her, who had never made her feel small or worthless, who loved her exactly as she was. "Everything's okay," she said. "Everything's finally okay." On Emma's 35th birthday, Olivia gave her a gift. It was a leather-bound scrapbook, thick and heavy, filled with photos and mementos from throughout Emma's life. "I've been working on this for months," Olivia said. "I wanted to document your journey. Our journey." Emma opened the first page. It was a photo of her GED certificate, carefully preserved all these years. Under the photo, Olivia had written, "My mom was 16 years old, pregnant and homeless when she earned this. She studied in homeless shelters and fast food restaurants. She had no one to help her. She could have given up. She didn't." Emma turned the page. Her nursing school graduation photo. 6 years of night classes, 3 jobs at once, a toddler at home. "My mom did all of this while other people her age were going to parties and sleeping in on weekends. She sacrificed everything so I could have a better life." Page after page, Olivia had documented Emma's journey. The first apartment, the promotions at work, Olivia's first day of school, her 15th birthday, the trip to Willow Creek, Margaret's arrival in Seattle, James's proposal, the wedding, and at the end a recent photo of all 4 of them, Emma, James, Olivia, and Margaret, taken at Thanksgiving dinner. Under the photo, Olivia had written, "20 years ago, my mom was thrown away by the people who were supposed to love her most. She had nothing. She had no one. But she refused to let that define her. She built a career. She raised a daughter. She found love. She even found a way to forgive the mother who abandoned her. My mom is the strongest person I've ever known, and if I grow up to be half the woman she is, I'll consider my life a success. Happy birthday, Mom. Thank you for never giving up. Love forever. Olivia." Emma closed the scrapbook. She was crying. James was crying. Margaret was crying. Even Olivia, who had tried so hard to be composed, was wiping tears from her eyes. "Come here," Emma said, pulling her daughter into a hug. They held each other for a long time. "When did you become so wise?" Emma whispered. "I learned from the best," Olivia replied. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emma sat alone on the balcony of her apartment. The Seattle skyline glittered in the distance. The air was cool and crisp. The world was quiet in a way it rarely was. She thought about the last 20 years. She thought about Brandon Mitchell and his lies, about her father's cold eyes and her mother's turned back, about the suitcase hitting the floor and the door closing and the park bench where she had waited for someone who never came. She thought about Gloria Martinez and Hope House, about the GED classes and the nursing degree, about the 3 jobs and the 4 hours of sleep and the years of fighting for every inch of ground. She thought about Olivia, her miracle, her reason for surviving, the daughter who had given her a purpose when she had nothing else. She thought about Margaret, the mother she had lost and found again, the relationship they were still building brick by brick, day by day. She thought about James, the partner she had never allowed herself to want, the love she had never thought she deserved. And she thought about herself, not the scared 15-year-old girl who had been thrown away like garbage, not the desperate teenager who had slept on park benches and eaten out of garbage cans, Not the struggling single mother who had worked herself to exhaustion every single day for years, but the woman she had become. Strong, successful, loved, whole. She had spent so long defining herself by what had been done to her, by the trauma, by the abandonment, by the struggle. But that wasn't who she was anymore. She was Emma Brooks, wife, mother, daughter, nurse, survivor. She was someone who had taken the worst that life could throw at her and refused to break. And that she realized was the real victory. Not the career or the apartment or the ring on her finger. Not the reconciliation with her mother or the conviction of Brandon Mitchell. The real victory was simply this: she had survived. She had survived, and she had thrived, and she had built a life worth living. And no one could ever take that away from her. The door behind her opened. "Can't sleep." Margaret's voice was soft. "Just thinking." Margaret sat down beside her. She was 75 now, frailer than ever, but there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago, a reason to keep living. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing." Emma paused. "I was thinking about how strange life is, how the worst things that happen to us can sometimes lead to the best things." "Like what?" "Like Olivia. If you and Dad hadn't thrown me out, I never would have had her. I never would have become a nurse. I never would have met James." Emma turned to look at her mother. "I'm not saying I'm grateful for what happened. I'm not. It was terrible and wrong, and I'll never completely get over it. But somehow, out of all that pain, something beautiful grew." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Like my roses," she said finally. "What do you mean?" "The rose bush I brought from Willow Creek. The one that survived all those years of neglect." Margaret smiled softly. "I planted it in the garden here. Did you see it?" "I saw it. It's thriving, Emma. After everything, after years of being ignored and left to die, it's thriving. It bloomed this spring. Dozens of roses, more than it ever produced before." Emma thought about that stubborn rose bush, the one that had refused to die, even when everything around it had been destroyed. "Maybe survival runs in the family," she said. Margaret reached over and took her daughter's hand. "I think it does." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the city flicker in the distance. Mother and daughter. Two women who had lost everything and found their way back to each other. "I forgive you," Emma said suddenly. Margaret's hand tightened on hers. "What?" "I forgive you, Mom. Completely. Finally." Emma turned to face her mother. "I've been holding on to a piece of it all this time. The last bit of anger, the last bit of resentment. But I'm letting it go now. Tonight. I'm letting it all go." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, I don't deserve—" "Maybe not. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me." Emma squeezed her mother's hand. Carrying that anger around for 20 years was exhausting. It was a weight I didn't even know I was carrying until I started to let it go. And now I want to be free of it completely. I want to move forward without looking back. Can you really do that? After everything? I think so. I think I finally can. Emma smiled. Because I finally understand something I didn't understand before. What happened to me doesn't define me. What you and Dad did doesn't define me. The only thing that defines me is what I choose to do next. And I choose to let go. I choose to be free. I choose to be happy. Margaret was crying openly now. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. Even when I was too weak to show it. Even when I was too scared to fight for you. You were always the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you too, Mom. Emma pulled her mother into a hug. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're part of our family. I'm glad Olivia gets to know her grandmother. They held each other under the stars, two women who had been broken by the same tragedy, finally finding peace. If you are watching this right now, I want you to take something from Emma's story. Maybe you have been thrown away by someone who was supposed to love you. Maybe you have made mistakes that you think define you forever. Maybe you are sleeping on a park bench right now, or working 3 jobs, or crying yourself to sleep every night wondering if things will ever get better. I want you to know they can. They will, but only if you keep fighting. Emma Sullivan was 15 years old, pregnant and homeless. She had nothing except a suitcase and $47 and a broken heart. And she became a nurse, a mother, a wife, a daughter again. Not because life was easy, not because she got lucky breaks, but because she refused to let the worst moment of her life be the final chapter of her story. You can refuse too. Whatever you are going through right now, whoever has hurt you, whatever you have lost, however broken you feel, it is not the end. It is just a chapter. And you get to decide what comes next. So decide something good. Decide to survive. Decide to thrive. Decide that the people who threw you away were wrong about you, and then spend the rest of your life proving it. That is what Emma did. That is what you can do too. Because the truth is simple. The ones who throw you away do not get to decide your worth. Only you can do that, and you are worth fighting for. You always have been.